Okay, so now let's take this part to start the agreement between the producer and consumer for the items which are WI5. So what I'll do, I'm just gonna open in a new tab and I want to find the properties which I'm interested in. Now for this case, I'm only interested to these three properties because these are the only needed to perform the security hash. However, I may choose to have one single properties and to have this concatenated, but I don't recommend to have this approach because there is no kind of limit how many properties you can specify in the JSON, and moreover, you're gonna lose the business logic. Maybe you have another process which want to retrieve this information specifically, or you want to use the client name for audit purposes. And as long as you keep them separately, it's much easier to concatenate rather than having one single field and then to do the splitting part. So I'll decide to create an object with the client name, client country. So the way how I do that, I'm just going to copy and I'm going to use the same website. So I'll start with an empty object and then I'm going to say client ID and I'm going to say this will be a value. Okay. And I have another property, client name. And by the way, I need to use a comma for this. And client country, that should be Italy. So let's make this one and see if it looks correct. So make pretty. Well, this could be a way how you would specify this client name and client country. And that's perfectly valid. You can use spaces in the properties and also in the values. However, I don't recommend to use spaces. Even if it's possible, I don't recommend to use this. And I'm going to tell you just in a moment why. So let's make this pretty. And that's a perfectly valid format. However, what if you would like to add about work item details? So, well, in that case, you need to create an object which is referring to the client information. So what I'll do, I'm going to create here another properties and let's say client information. And I'm going to go here and go with another bracket. And because I want to be easy to be seen, let's make it actually here pretty. So make pretty, it actually look the same. Well, related to names, there is somehow a convention to use the smaller one, client information, client ID, but there is no a hard rule. So this is usually done and told by the architect. To be honest, as a standard, this one it's with a lower case. So let's keep that and use the standard one, client country. And if I would like to tell information about the work item details, I can go and say, maybe I'm going to add another comma and let's say details. And that would be another object. So I'm interested to have these three. So that will look the same. I'm going to just paste and add the needed properties. And that should be the type. And the date I need to specify as a text also. So as you know, you can only specify text and numbers. So make pretty. Okay, it seems I have an error. Yes, I didn't add the comma, so you need to specify a comma after each parentheses. And the last one I think you don't need. So make pretty. Well, this work item ID you can specify as a text also. So it's not necessarily mandatory to be as a string. However, you need to make a conversion on the client, on the consumer part, to convert this from a text to a number. So for simplicity, I'm just going to keep as a number. Great. So this is how we would look like a format that you're gonna specify for this item type. Great. So this is the way how I would decide to go to show the format, the client name and the details. Even if we don't need these details, I'm just gonna choose to pick it because in production, you will probably need to have more objects than one. So I'll choose with this format. Now, even if this format would work, a warning I would say that it needs to be consistent. So in this case, this naming is not consistent. So let's keep this lower. I'm going to choose WIID. And in this case, because this one it's a representation and it represents the ID, I can go either to name that in the ID, to have with the lowercase, but this one is referring to the work item, so it's a short notation, and usually the short notation I prefer to use to have capital letters. But because this one is basically in an ID, and I know that this is a work item ID, okay, I prefer to name this ID. So make pretty, and I'm consistent with this naming. Great, now let's go to the next part.